The darkening forest was damp and its air was thick. All the creatures were singing their songs that echoed among the monstrous trees. Some of the songs were sung for the sunset, the others were sung for the dark. Among this nature sat an enormous purple tent with golden seams. A half-dressed man was hurriedly pushing his way through the grasping vines in search of a legend he hoped existed, and after hours of exhausting desperation he came upon the tent. He stood for several moments staring at the place, not sure if to believe his eyes. He had traveled far from his village to meet the woman he hoped would be inside. If myths were true, she could tell him what he had wanted to know most of his life. If the stories were false, then hope would die. The light was rapidly sinking, and the music from the forest was a full orchestra now. Although in that particular forest, one never knows if the songs tell a happy story or a frightening one. The man didn't care to listen to it any more for fear of the latter. He approached the tent, and yellow light shined thinly through the curtains that acted as its door. Slowly he penetrated the opening of the curtains with his hand and slid between them, entering the place of mystery. The inside was both gorgeous and odd. It was either a place of meditation or a chamber of torture, perhaps both. Wonderful ornaments and candles hung from the lines that crossed between the poles that held the ceiling. Strangely beautiful paintings lied on tables and hung from strings. Heads of animals and shrunken skulls perched from various stands. A fog filled the air. It was not thick nor threatening. It had a sweet smell and entered the lungs more like air than like smoke. The man took a few steps inward toward the center of the enormous tent. Several more compartments were inside, also hidden away with their own curtains. It was like a maze, one entrance leading to several more. Without warning, a very small man charged through one of those curtains and began yelling. He walked quickly toward the customer and shouted, "Out! Out! She is busy, and it is late! You have no appointment here, and probably no payment either. Get out!" "Wait, please, I must see her, I must. I don't care the reason. Out! You can't just come charging in on her as if she owes it to you. Do you know who this is? Do you have any idea whose tent you just entered? If you did, you'd have more respect." "I do know who she is. At least I've heard stories. Please, let me see her. Everything depends on seeing her." "Pfft. Just like everyone says. Everyone is always so important. Let me guess. You have any payment ready for her?" "No, I don't. I don't have coins." "Thought so. Out with you then. And don't come back. She's not seeing anyone else." "Let him pass," came a soft voice from inside the compartment. "I will see him." The two men were silent, the smaller one beaming at the stranger. The half-dressed man stared back, hoping to be let onward. "Go in, then, and praise your gods that she has been so kind to share with you her gift." The stranger walked slowly to the next set of curtains from where the voice escaped. Again he led with his hands and gently slid his body through the opening. Immediately sweet smells and fog hit his face. Dim candlelight danced on the walls. His eyes adjusted, and he realized that the room he was now standing in seemed to be twice as large as the one he just left. Once through the curtains, he looked back at the entrance and saw that now there was no light beaming through. Directly across from where he entered sat a thin, dark woman, sitting on a disfigured wooden chair. Her eyes were closed, and she sat forward, her head hanging towards the floor. He stood still and did not speak. She sat and did not move. There was a low humming sound. Was it an animal? Perhaps a bird? Or some odd noise maker nearby? He could not tell and did not ask. The fog didn't clear, but instead did a calm dance around the room. The light, coming from only a few candles, waltzed around the walls like wildfire. With her eyes still closed, she lifted her head towards the ceiling, down again, then forward. She opened her eyes and met the strangers directly. "Do you know who I am?" she asked. "I do," he stuttered. "And you know what I do?" she asked. "Yes," he responded. She closed her eyes again, lifted her palms into the air, and hummed a song to herself. "Come to the middle of the space," she directed. The stranger slowly stepped into the middle of the room they were in. He was breathing shallowly to keep quiet, but his nerves begged his lungs to grasp for air. He wanted to explain himself. "I am here to—" "I know why you are here," she cut him off, eyes still closed. "You have been looking for a fortune teller. Now you have found one." She made rapid, dance-like movements with her arms, as if she was trying to contort the fog into a shape. Her movements were fluid and light. Again she opened her eyes and looked at the man. "You have come from the south looking for an answer," she began. "I have that answer." For the first time, she stood up and revealed the totality of the blue and purple robe she was wearing. It fell to the floor, overtaking her legs and feet. It was thin and light, but looked sturdy and tough. She walked to the nearest wooden table and picked up a bowl that contained a bright blue liquid. It was not a drink as far as the stranger could tell. It looked thick and viscous like paint. She took the bowl and walked over to what seemed to be a large canvas that was standing on its side. It was being held upright by a stand that supported it from the back. It was as tall as a body and as wide, too. The woman dipped 2 fingers into the bowl and began to draw on the large surface. Sometimes she made quick slashes, and at times made slow strokes. She made shapes and shades, but nothing that looked definite. She drew for some time and never spoke a word. The man, completely lost and utterly confused, thought best to say nothing. Finally, she stopped painting and stepped back from her drawing. "There it is," she said. "Your answer." The man looked and only saw random shapes, nothing that had any resemblance of a portrait or a word, nothing he could understand. "I don't understand," he said. "No, you shouldn't," she responded. She placed the bowl back on the table, wiped her hand with a rag, and returned to her seat. The man continued to stare at the blue drawing and could not understand the meaning of its way. He looked back toward the fortune-teller with the hopes that she could explain the reasoning. "I am a fortune-teller," she began. "I can see your life as it is, was, and will be. What you see before you in that paint is what the cosmos had showed me of your life." The man did not understand, but did not cut her off in fear that she might stop talking. "You, half-naked man, have come for an answer. In searching for it, I have found the path of your life. I am not like other tellers. I see all, good and bad. I am not like other tellers. I will not shield you from the darkness. I am not like other tellers. I will tell you everything." The man, still confused, was excited to learn that there was hope for him, and at the same time nervous from her forwardness. He had come a long way in search of something, and it sounded to him that he had come to the right place. If only he could get his answer, he would know what to do. "Tell me, fortune-teller, what the answer is." She paused for a long time, again closing her eyes to search the air. The fog danced just a bit faster than it once had, and the light was dancing a fast-paced routine. "I do not answer questions for free," she said. I know you have no coin, but not to worry, half-naked man. There is another way. His heart leapt to his throat. If he could somehow find a way to pay, he could know his answer. Name the way, I'll do it. Quickly she opened her eyes and met the gaze of the man. To see, you must pay, and you're asking for an answer that will change much. For that change, you must pay much. He was becoming desperate, and his heart pounded the innards of his chest. Name it, I'll do anything, I must know. She stood upward, this time almost as if she floated off the chair. To receive this kind of sight, you must give sight in return. How do you mean? He said, almost breathlessly. She paused, and for the first time a smile came to her face that had the slightest tint of darkness. The fog began to move even faster still, and the candlelight moved as if blowing in the wind. And I, she said quietly and with passion, give me an eye, and I'll tell you what I've seen. His heart was nearly out of his chest. His nerves shook his body, and sweat began to release from his pores. Somehow the faint humming from the room began to get louder. My eye? He said almost without a voice. You want my eye? I can't. You must. Her smile was full now, and she spoke with spirit. Give me an eye, and I'll tell you about the boy. He was completely silent. He felt his body shake and his heart beat. She knew. She knew the answer to his question. The myths were true about the fortune-teller. He wanted to know more than anything, to know what she knew, but could he possibly give an eye? He didn't know what to do. He shook all over. He tried. He fell to his knees and began to cry. All right, tell me what you know. The fog surrounded the man like a storm of clouds. The light turned everywhere like a tornado of fire. Pain seared all through his head, unbearable and unrelenting. His eye was taken. He writhed on the floor. The woman laughed with glee. The fog lifted and returned to the air. She walked slowly to the broken man and stared down at him with eyes as deep as heaven and hell. Pitifully, he looked at her, only one eye to see her with. He was weak and scared. Half-naked, half-eyed man, I have the answer you seek. Please, he cried, please tell me. Your son, she said, is still alive.